Welcome to Night Class, everyone. Before we get started, we want to first address a note from you, the viewers. That's right. We've gotten some comments saying that some laughter would make our show more dynamic. And since we weren't able to get an audience in here, we thought we would go with the next best thing, which means that every time it's appropriate to laugh, you'll hear this. We know it's not the full thing, but with that settled, on to the episode. Today, we want to talk about a very serious topic, eugenics. Nope, that is not. Okay. Basically, USC might have ties to the Nazis. Nope, again, with the no, okay. We're talking about things like forced sterilization. Nope. Illegitimate children. Again, with, okay. And the mistreatment. And the mistreatment of those with severe mental health issues. Now, this all starts with Rufus Von KleidSmid, USC's 5th president serving from 1921 to 1947. Von KleidSmid has a statue on campus and an entire library named after him called the Von KleidSmid Center. You know, the place with the upside-down Japanese flag. Earlier this year, students vandalized his statue, labeling him a Nazi and calling for the library to be renamed. Renaming VKC has been a very hot topic for the past 3 years, and USC still hasn't done much about it. So today, we're going to take a look at who Rufus Von KleidSmid was, why students are protesting him, and why the university has avoided responding to this for so long. The era of Carol Folt may change this, but we first have to start from where this all began. So, who is Rufus Von KleidSmid? He became our president in 1921, at the beginning of the Roaring Twenties, when alcohol was illegal and Al Capone was hazing Jay Gatsby at Pike. At the time, USC was a small university, with a few thousand students and barely any buildings or infrastructure. Occidental, basically. But by the time Von KleidSmid retired, the school had quadrupled in size to more than 24,000 students. He also opened 9 new buildings on campus and started major programs like the School of Cinematic Arts or the School of International Relations. So, with all he did for USC, why are people mad that his name is on a building? He did a whole lot more than Al Cowlings. Well, in addition to his job at USC, Von KleidSmid was a vocal eugenicist. In 1913, he read a paper before the Cincinnati Academy of Medicine in which he said, among other things, "We must all agree that those who can do little else than pass on their offsprings the defects which make themselves burdens to society have no ethical right to parenthood." Yes, that sounds awful. But it still isn't the most awkward commencement address you've had to sit through.
Yeah, this is a big deal for me. I'm an MBA dropout, actually. This is as close as I ever got. Right here, I'm sitting on stage, listening to Jim speak, thinking, what could have been? But it's all there for all of you.
All right. But it wasn't just speeches. Von KleidSmid was also a founding member of the Human Betterment Foundation. This, of course, sounds nice if you have no idea what it is. Like furries. In reality, the Human Betterment Foundation was a group that lobbied in support of eugenics and was partially responsible for the massive increase in sterilizations across California between 1928 and 1950, reaching a peak of 20,000 sterilizations by about the time Von KleidSmid retired. These sterilizations were mostly performed on people who were deemed mentally ill, but also those who were manically depressed and women who were labeled sexually promiscuous. Now, not only that, but these sterilizations were disproportionately performed on minorities. At a time when African Americans were just 1% of California's population, they made up 4% of total sterilizations. And when Mexican women were 4% of California's population, they represented 8% of those sterilized. So yeah, a little less fun. Now, to be fair, the fault doesn't lie solely with Von KleidSmid. If you look at the roster of the Human Betterment Foundation, it's pretty much a list of who had power in California at the time, including leading academics like David Starr Jordan, Charles Goff, Lewis Terman, Robert Millikan, William B. Monroe, and Samuel J. Holmes, also known as the Sisterhood of the Traveling Elbow Patches. And like a stingy Austrian art teacher, they even went on to influence the Nazi Party. When Charles Goff visited Germany in 1935, he sent a letter back to the foundation's founder, E.S. Gosny, saying this: "You will be interested to know that your work has played a powerful part in shaping the opinions of the group of intellectuals who are behind Hitler. My dear friend, carry this thought with you for the rest of your life, that you have really jolted into action a great government of 60 million people." I haven't seen such a backfire since I brought up the Green Book at Thanksgiving dinner. But by the time the Nazis adopted eugenics to systematically persecute Jews during World War II, von KleidSmid denounced them, and sterilizations nearly ended in California. Eugenics went out of style. Now, the only people who are into forced human perfection are on 8chan or teaching Peloton classes. Given this background, the students who are protesting argue that von KleidSmid represents one of the darkest parts of our country's history and shouldn't have a place of honor on our campus. The issue first came about in 2016 after Professor George Sanchez brought up USC's past with racism, most notably von KleidSmid's work on eugenics. After that, op-ed after op-ed was published by students pushing for the VKC library to be renamed. In 2018, a USG senator directly petitioned to the school to change it, but nothing was done until about a year later when a task force on nomenclature was established by Provost Michael Quick, also known as the guy who emailed you whenever something went wrong. In February of 2019, Quick sent out an email to students saying that the task force was assembled with two goals in mind. One, articulate a set of principles to guide USC in decisions about historical names of buildings and statues, which means the OJ Lucy Juicy Juice Bar won't be happening anytime soon. The second is to outline a process by which students, faculty, or staff may submit items for consideration. So basically, first, figure out if we care. Second, figure out how we're supposed to maybe care about it, and other things that might or might not be like it that could possibly be worth considering, maybe perhaps. But in their mission statement, they clarified that the task force should not deal with any particular issue or controversy, which is something they reiterated to us over email. USC, you're not the ones who are supposed to be avoiding responsibility. That's us doing this show, okay? Anyway, this semester, action was finally taken about VKC just by the students instead. Hours before USC's newest president, Carol Folt, was inaugurated this year, a statue of von KleidSmid was vandalized after students hung a sign that read Nazi around its neck, which hasn't happened since Brent took his Halloween costume too far this year. Then, during Folt's speech that day, this student protest broke out.
Who do you serve? Who do you protect? Who do you serve? Who do you protect? Who do you serve? Thank you.
That also happens to be the most polite ending to a protest I've ever seen. Who do you serve? Who do you protect? Please send us an email with your contact information and maybe a personal assistant we could get in contact with. Thank you very much, Carol. Your dress looks great today. Pencil in 2022, maybe? That would be great. Thank you very much for your time. Carol Folt is no stranger to statue-based protests either. In fact, much like this year's freshman class, controversy is pretty much why she came here. The hashtag #SilentSam poster that those students are holding is in reference to a protest that ended Folt's career as chancellor at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Silent Sam was a statue of a Confederate soldier at UNC that was built in 1913. Students had protested Silent Sam for years, but protests against the statue reached new heights in 2017 when one student smeared their own blood on the statue's base. Something we do here with Tommy Trojan, but only because we love him in a weird way that you wouldn't understand. By early 2018, Folt was negotiating with the state legislature when students took actions into their own hands and tore the statue down. A few hours later, the school removed Sam, which has been in hiding ever since. Although we have reports he's wherever Clay Helton is. This upset not only some members of UNC's student body, but many faculty members as well. After the controversy, even though Folt already planned to step down as chancellor, her resignation date was moved up by a few months to get her out faster. Opinions about how Folt handled the Silent Sam controversy are pretty divided. But apparently not for USC, who basically saw crisis control on Folt's resume like a Facebook recruiter sees raw intelligence with no morals, a prerequisite of sorts. Now, Carol is our new president, and we're faced with an issue she has experience with. And in an interview earlier this year, she said dealing with VKC's name was going to be a top priority, especially with the task force on nomenclature.
We already do, though, have a committee in place that's looking in nomenclature, so I'm pretty sure we'll be able to get to that pretty quickly. It won't be, it's never as simple as you think, but I think there's a process there, and now I have to engage with it.
But how are you supposed to get at something quickly when the group assigned to solve this problem said they won't deal with it? There seems to be a lack of understanding as to how this will actually be dealt with, like when Dad lit his leg on fire during the 4th of July barbecue. With both VKC and Silent Sam, Carol Folt has been in the middle of a phenomenon across the modern American campus, which is dealing with our problematic histories. Students protested against Confederate-era monuments at Ole Miss and the University of Oregon. Statues were torn down at UT Austin. Stanford removed the name of a Spanish priest and colonizer from their address and dormitories. And investigations have been conducted at Brown University, Harvard, Princeton, Columbia, and not just William, but Mary too. Now, it should be said that these people had statues or their names dedicated in the first place because they made lasting contributions to their school. USC wouldn't be USC today without Von KleidSmid. He was responsible for building Tommy Trojan, making USC a secular university, and even creating our first ever cupcake ATM. For USC, this ongoing dialogue prompts us to finally make a decision. Do we respect Von KleidSmid for all he's done for the school, or do we part from a piece of history we'd rather not have represent USC? This task force on nomenclature right now has a document drafted and is set up to do a listening tour with student groups about creating a process to rename buildings, but they still insist they won't be making a final decision on VKC. We're not advocating for the university to choose either way, but we do think these continued protests forces our administration to make an actual stance, which doesn't include another year of waiting for a task force to say what the guidelines are. That's not what students are asking for. With a new administration, we have the chance to set a new standard for our school, which, after the last few years, could do all of us a whole lot of good. Damn it, no, that's not...